Thank you to the Salvation Army. Greetings to everyone who's come out, including to my parliamentary colleagues. The title that I was given is "What is the type of leadership to guide New Zealand forward?" I want to address that by firstly talking about values and then talking about some of the individual policies that reflect those values that make a difference. I think that to tackle inequality, unfairness, child poverty, you have to first believe that it's a terrible thing. You have to believe that we are better than that as a society if we have a more egalitarian society and that we don't leave as many people behind. And if that's more important to you in one part of the political spectrum than it is in another, then you should, if you hold those values, judge those different parts of the political spectrum accordingly. And if I had one criticism of the coverage today, Major Campbell, I felt a little insulted that you were tarring all politicians with the same brush. And I'm going to tell you some statistics which show that there is a difference between political hues. In the last government, the Labour Party, with help from coalition partners and confidence and support parties that included the Greens and New Zealand First, we lifted the minimum wage from $7 an hour to $12 an hour. That made a big difference. We increased the first child rate of the family tax credit by $25 a week. That made a big difference. We lifted the income threshold that people could earn in addition to their benefits. We indexed both the threshold and the payments of tax credits. Those made a big difference. We, in respect of the working for families, shifted the in-work tax credit so that the majority of families were on $60 a week, which lifted the incomes, particularly of low-income families that had part-time workers. We pushed very hard towards universal early childhood education, and if there's something that I do agree with you, giving a bit of a plaudit to the government, I think there is some credit. They've continued with that policy and tried to push it into some of the areas which are less well served than the middle and upper class areas. All of those made a real difference. Our tax cuts and our non-tax cut measures were directed disproportionately to those who have the least. This government has done the reverse. They have given income tax cuts, 40% of which went to the top 10% of income earners. They have reversed the automatic indexation of some thresholds, and they have increased the abatement rates of benefits where people have some non-benefit income. Actions speak louder than words. In respect of income inadequacy, I agree with some of the things that Winston's said. I really think we have some problems with some core economic settings in New Zealand that hold us back and make it harder for those people who employ people in New Zealand to pay a decent wage. And on our list are some big items. We agree with Winston, actually the Greens, and we're all agreed that we need to update Reserve Bank policy so that we pay less attention to inflation, don't allow it to trump other things like the exchange rate, and keep better manufacturing jobs in New Zealand. We think that we need to have a capital gains tax for both fairness and economic reasons. We think that it's wrong that some of the wealthiest people in society effectively escape their proper share of tax obligations through being able to have income which is effectively a capital gain because of a statutory definition of income, which means that their income attracts lower rates of tax than someone on the minimum wage working as a checkout supermarket operator. It's just wrong. In addition, it's really important to get the economy cracking and get money going into the right part of the economy. Housing, because I'm going to run out of time, and please tell me when I have run out. Yes. Housing. There is a definite problem with housing affordability, especially in Auckland. The biggest problem is a supply problem. Not enough affordable houses are being built. We have a plan to substantially address that, building 100,000 low-cost housing over a period of 10 years. The government pours water upon it, or pours scorn upon it, says that they think we should be doing something about affordable housing, but it can't be done. I find those two concepts irreconcilable. In Labor, we say something must be done about it. We actually have to bring forward the power of the state, as it has done in the back. We do need to address some land supply issues. We need to drive planning processes appropriately, but we also need to get on and build a few of the bloody things, because they're not being built at the moment, these affordable, these lower cost housing. They'll be smaller houses. They're not going to be grand palaces. They'll only have one bathroom. A lot of them won't have a garage. They will be smaller in areas, smaller rooms. Some of them will be apartments, some of them will be terrace, but we have to get on and build these houses. In terms of the government's welfare reforms, they've got measures for symptoms, but they won't address and create a measure for the underlying cause of a lot of these symptoms. So they've got measures for rheumatic fever, for immunisation, for violence. And I'm not decrying those things. They're good things to measure and they're good things to try and improve. But you've got to set targets for reduction of child poverty. And in order to do that, you've actually got to agree on a measure that you're going to use. Interested to hear your comments that there's always a temptation to change the measure. I agree with that, there is always. The government actually won't even adopt a measure that they will be held accountable for. You can argue as to what's the right measure. You can't argue that you should have one and that you should then monitor against it. The welfare reforms aren't responsible for the drop in teenage pregnancy, which is a good thing. Government cannot claim that that is an outcome of their welfare reform policy. Sorry, 2 minutes. I'm happy to answer questions on any of these issues. I think that a comment that was made to me as I came in here was that someone quoted a Nobel laureate in economics, Amartya Sen, who's an Indian economist who lives in, I think he lives in, where is it, the States these days? Yeah. One of his books is called Development as Freedom. And he says that in a good and proper society, everyone should be able to develop their potential and access markets, because markets are some of the ways that people do that. But in order to do that, they've actually got to be living in a society which creates the opportunities and has the settings that allows them realistically to have a chance. And at the moment in New Zealand, there are too many people who don't. And for you to change that, you have to have a government who puts a higher value on equality. That's all I'll say at this stage.
Thank you very much. Can I welcome Alfred Nara? Good to have you here.